All right, Tim, take it away.
All right, today we are going to be going over Google Calendar and some of its features. As always, if Mary has your email, you'll get a link to these slides and a link to the presentation video. If you have any questions during this, feel free to either type it in chat, use the Zoom raise hand function, or we will stop at certain points and ask if anyone has any questions. Uh, First things first, the slides are always useful as a reference, mainly so you don't have to write anything down while you're paying attention to the presentation. And any questions you ask or have afterward, I'll add it to these slides. So it's sort of like a living document, which essentially means if you come back to the slides in a year from now or so, you'll still be able to get updated information. One of the first things is shortcuts. If you like keyboard shortcuts to do a lot of tasks in your programs in general, you can view all of the shortcuts that Google Calendar has by hitting Shift and the question mark key. So basically, if you type a question mark while you have Calendar open, it'll open up a list of all the different shortcuts you can use. I personally don't use any of the keyboard shortcuts, but some people find them very useful and easier to do. There are shortcuts when you're using the mouse. Basically, it consists of dragging over the amount of time you want an event to occupy. You can do this either in the calendar view itself. So you can have a time period from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can just click and drag to select that amount of time. On the top left-hand side where there's a tiny calendar, you can click and drag to select what days from the calendar you want to have visible on your screen, or at the top you can click and drag to make a multi-day event. And I'll show that in a little bit. As we talked about in the previous Gmail and contacts presentation, you can create an event from email. We can go over that again. And basically what this allows you to do is it allows you to, from an email conversation, create an event, which will automatically set the title of the event to the subject of the email. And it will also take all the correspondence that's been going on back and forth in the body of the email and add that to the body of the calendar invite. One of the reasons this is really nice is you don't have to type the information twice. And also anyone who is involved in the calendar or in the email chain will also be added to the calendar invite. So for large groups of people, you don't have to manually keep adding people to this invite or to this event. Find a time, and I'll definitely show you this one. Find a time is very useful if you're in a business or kind of a family where you want to find a time for an event that works with everyone. So the way I'll show this is actually pretty horrible since I don't have any friends on this calendar, but we will just click anywhere on this calendar. I'll make it a little bit bigger so it might be easier to see, but we'll just click a time slot. You see it creates an event. I can add a title, test title, and go to more options. Right here on the left-hand side, I can click on find a time. So what find a time will do is it will show you the calendar of all the people who are guests of this meeting. Right now it's just me, so it's not really that impressive, but you can see that I have an event yesterday on Monday at 9 a.m. So you can see that that time is blocked off. So if I had multiple people involved in this, Abby obviously doesn't have a calendar, but if I had multiple people added to this calendar event, I could see, and I had permissions, I could see where their time blocks were, and it would make it easier to determine where everyone has some free time. Again, it's mainly useful if you're in a team setting, so like an organization or business, where you can have access to a lot of shared calendars. The next thing I want to talk about is time blocking. So time blocking to me is kind of similar to is useful for the kind of people who like to have like zero inbox kind of thing, where you want everything clean. But what time blocking allows you to do is essentially, it's in the name, is block out your time. So let's say you're in a business scenario, or you're just trying to manage your own time. I would say, okay, well, in order to, add things to this presentation, I will block off my time from 10 a.m. and I click and I'm dragging to 12:30. And I will just title this as presentation setup. So what this is telling me is that I am blocking off this period of time for presentation setup. Now, one of the important things to do from here is to make sure that you're doing the correct calendar. On the bottom of this section, you can click here where it has the little calendar icon, and it will expand. So one of the fun things you can do is, if this is a time block that you don't want anyone to be able to block over, you can make sure it's set to busy. If this is a time block that's kind of flexible and you wanted it for your own kind of planning purposes, you can set it to free, which will then allow other people who have access to your shared calendar to block over it. But again, that's generally only useful in like a business, or if you use calendar for family, kind of thing like that. And then you would hit save. Now, one of the fun things you can do after this is you can set tasks in your time block. So I will click to the right of the time block that I've set up, and I will then go to task. I will add a title. So this first one is going to be research. So in this time block, I want to have time for research. So in this task, I have it set to my list. You can create multiple lists, but this one's mine, and add a description. So I will add this. So I want to have an event or a task for researching for the presentation. Save. I will then add another task for typing up the slides. I will then add a task for, I don't know, going through the slides. And then finally, I will add a task for editing the slides. Whoops, as you see, I did not correctly create that. So if I edit the event, I can more actions, delete, go back over here, create a task, edit. So this is kind of a if you're into it kind of thing. But now what I've done is I've created a time block. So if I'm viewing my calendar, I can see this block of time, and I now have tasks. So research, typing up the slides, viewing the slides, and edit. One of the nice things is that if you don't complete the tasks, they will then show up on your next day. So it will remind you to go back and complete them. So as you can see, I have 2 tasks on Monday. one test time block and two another test. And on Tuesday, up at the top, I have two pending tasks, which means I did not complete them from yesterday. So if I were to click on this test time block event or task, I can then go over here and in the bottom right, hit mark completed. And now I only have one pending task. You can also see that as I mark them completed, maybe it might be a little bit small, there is a horizontal line that goes through it that notifies me that the task has been completed. So this is kind of just a way to manage your time or a way to set up tasks for you to do in the future that you may not remember. And it also, makes it nice that you can mark them as completed directly through the calendar. But it's kind of if you want a little bit more organization to your life, you can use this time block method. Time zones. So some of us may have a business or a friend or some family member that's in a different time zone, and it's not always clear what time it is in X, Y, or Z country. I know GMT -5 means absolutely nothing to me. GMT -10 means even less. So what you can do is you can go to settings, time zone, display secondary time zone. And then on the left-hand side here, you can see it says GMT 05. It will be able to display more time zones. So if we go to settings, which is the gear icon in the top right, click on settings again, go to time zone on the left-hand side, we can add a secondary time zone and click on display secondary time zone. So if I do a lot of work with people in, I don't know, with people in
Eastern Europe.
Eastern Europe, in Bucharest. There we go. You can label it if you want. But so we have a secondary time zone. If I go back to my calendar, I now have my secondary time zone right here. So I know any event I make for 10 a.m. my time is 5 p.m. their time. Oh, sorry, I thought someone was asking a question. So again, this is useful if you work with people in other time zones, just so you kind of can get used to what their time is versus your time. If you want to undo that, you just go to the settings menu, go to settings, time zone, and uncheck display secondary time zone. And now you only have the one time zone showing. Notifications. So this is kind of how often do you want to be notified? If you're like me and you only select the default, I believe the default is 15 minutes ahead of time. It will notify you. And by notify you, it will do like a little pop-up on your phone or on your computer if you're in Google, any sort of Google program or a Google application. But if you like email or would like more than one notification, you can set that either per event or by default. So if we want to set the default as having more notifications, we can go to we would hover the calendar on the left-hand side, go to settings, event notifications, and add notification. So if we go to calendars, we hover over it, click on the ellipses, go to settings and sharing, go to event notifications. We can now see that I have it set to receive a notification for all events on this calendar prior to the event starting by 30 minutes. So if you want a notification when the event is starting, add notification, down to 0 minutes. So once the event has started, I will also get an additional reminder. If I much prefer to receive these in an email form, I can select notification and click on email instead. And now whenever an event that's on my calendar is starting, I will receive an email notification. If I would rather have that event, just a single event, give me more notifications than that, I can go to an event, go to the little, let's call that a pencil, the pencil icon, edit event, and I can, in the middle of the screen, it has the notifications. So by default, notification 30 minutes before, add notification, add notification, add notification. I can add an email notification 10 minutes before. I can add a notification 60 minutes before. I can add a notification 10 hours before, a day before, all sorts of different options for when I want to be notified as to this event. One thing to note is, well, actually, are there any questions about notifications on events or any of the things we've just discussed?
Any questions in the classroom?
I'm letting it soak in.
Okay, we're trying to absorb it all in the classroom. What about online? Anybody have any questions online? You can unmute yourself and ask. Yes, you're explaining it perfectly, Tim.
It's just an awful lot coming at us.
Or I'm just making it really confusing.
No, there's a lot coming at us, so we're just trying to follow along.
Yeah.
Everyone will receive the slides and the recording, so you can go over this multiple times and try things out.
The 30-minute notification has been extremely helpful for me. Good. I ride on time usually.
All right. So this is kind of if you just want to very simply click on something when the calendar isn't open and immediately go to the calendar. I just have the steps for it here. In Edge, you would go to the top right, More Tools, pin it to Taskbar. In Chrome, which is generally what more people use, I think it's still around like 79% of the world uses a Chrome browser. You would go to, while in the calendar, you would go to More Tools, Create Shortcut, and then once the shortcut is on your desktop, you would right-click on the shortcut, go to More Options, and select Pin to Taskbar. And what this would allow you to do is have the calendar icon just on your taskbar down here. You can click on it and it will automatically open the calendar. Daily agenda. So for people who subscribe to kind of a calendar-oriented lifestyle, sometimes a daily agenda can be very useful. And what this is you'll get an email notification as to all of your events scheduled for the day. This becomes very useful if you're using something like time blocking, where it will just give you an overview of your day every day. So what you can do is you will hover over the calendar, options, settings, other notifications, and daily agenda. So calendar, options, settings, other notifications, daily agenda, right here in the middle, receive a daily agenda email, or receive a daily email with the agenda for this calendar. Click on none, and you would select email. And then it would send you an email at the start of every day with your agenda for the day. I personally find that overwhelming, but some people may find it useful. If you use Outlook, you can integrate your Google Calendar with Outlook, and you would do this by, in Calendar, going to Options, Settings, Integrate Calendar, Secret iCal address, and you would copy that. And then in Outlook, you would go to File, Account Settings, Internet Calendars, New, you would paste the iCal address, and then you would, under folder name, type what you want the name of the calendar to be. If you want to share an entire calendar, you can kind of follow the same steps as we've done before. You would hover over the calendar, go to Settings, Share with specific people, and set permissions. So I will go to my calendar, go to Options, which are the ellipses, click on that, Settings and Sharing, share with a specific people or groups, click on that, add people and groups, click on this plus button, and then just start typing in someone's name. Click this, and then if you hit send, it'll send this, and this person or group of people can access your calendar. Very importantly, under permissions, this is where you choose how much access they have to the calendar. So you can select them to only see free or busy. So basically, if this is a private calendar and you just want to let somebody know if you're available or not, you can select this. They will just see the blocks of time you have. If you select See All Event Details, it will allow them to see the name of the event and the description of the event. If you allow them to make changes to events, that would then allow them to kind of edit or add to the title or description of an event and make changes and manage sharing. This would allow them to share items that are on your calendar with other people. Generally, See All Event Details is what you'll be sharing with. Other calendars. So let's just go over here. So under other calendars, you can see in this bottom left-hand corner, there's a little plus button. If you click on this, you have a couple options. So you can get other calendars from URL, import, subscribe, create new calendar, browse calendars of interest. If you hit subscribe, one thing you can do is you can request access to someone else's calendar. So similar to the other way of you sharing out your calendar, you can request access to someone's calendar. The other thing that this is useful for is browse calendars of interest. And what this allows you to do is have a calendar for things like holidays in the United States. You can hit this down arrow and you can get browse all holidays in Iceland. So now all the public holidays of Iceland are going to show up on my calendar. The other thing you can do is if you are a sports fan or global religious holidays, you can go to, hockey, click here, National Hockey League, click that arrow, and you really like the Calgary Flames, the Oilers for some unknown reason, the Rangers because you don't like to win, and why am I?
Bruins.
Yeah, I somehow skipped over the Bruins. Click on that, and now you can see that I have all of these calendars for these hockey teams right in my calendar. So I know when they're going to play. I can see who they're playing against, all of that fun stuff. So for sports teams, it's useful, but you can also do, religious holidays and national holidays. It's kind of nice just to have the United States holidays on there, because generally those correspond to time off from work, for me at least. And if you find that you are looking at way too many things on this left-hand side, you can see all of these have check marks. If I select the check mark, it will remove it from my calendar view. And if I wanted to view it again, I could just click and it will add it back. And this also works for up here.
All right, this is not working for me at all.
Sorry about that. This also works for under my calendars up here, your main calendar. You can select and deselect all of these. New calendar. So we briefly talked about how to share your calendar, but what if you have a personal calendar, but you want to share like just your work events? How would you do that? Well, instead of manually sharing every single work event, you can create a work calendar and then share that. So you would do this by going to calendar, you would go to other calendars, you would hit add, which is the plus button, create a new calendar. So I would title this calendar work, description for work. I would set the time zone and I would hit create calendar. Now you see I have a new calendar titled work. If I go to options, I view work as dangerous, so I will set it as tomato. So anything I create will not be read. Why is that? Well, that's because by default, you're going to be creating events in your base calendar. So what you would do is you would type in the event title, important work stuff, and down here at the bottom, near the calendar icon, I would click this, and you can see that I can select Tim B, which is my main calendar, or I can select work. If I select work, it will now change it to my work calendar. So if I want to see my work calendar, I make sure this is checked. If I don't, I can turn it off, and all of a sudden I don't see that calendar anymore. So the nice thing about this again is now that I have a work calendar, I know that I want to actually share my work calendar with someone. I can go to settings and sharing, and I can go to share with specific people or groups. And now I can add just this calendar. So the person would have access to my work calendar, but not my personal calendar for sharing. The next thing is if you are in an event or you are generally setting up the events for an organization that you're a part of, but you will not be at an event, what you can do is you can click on event, go to the ellipses, and hit change owner in order to allow someone else to control the event if you're not going to be there. Generally, this isn't incredibly important, but I know a lot of people in Peterborough are members of committees or boards or stuff like that. So you can always, if you're managing the creation of events, you can also manage who is in control of those events on a calendar. This is a relatively short class, but we are at the point where I'll go over anything that I discussed, or if anyone has any other questions for calendars, or if I went too fast on any given section, I can definitely go over something in more detail. So feel free to ask any questions, or Mary, if you have any comments about how you use Google Calendars, that'd be good to hear.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions in the classroom?
I have a question. I'm on a committee for church, the flower committee, and we do certain things at different times of the year. And I'm trying to figure out what the best way is for me to create a calendar. Like ordering the poinsettias for December. When do we contact the florist? When do we set it up? When do we pass them out to people who are going to receive them? I have that information in emails that I've sent to other members of the committee, but I'd like to have it all in one place, like a flower committee calendar. What did we do when? And I'm not sure the best way to make use of all you gave me this morning.
Yeah, so what I would do is I would generally recommend creating a calendar for the flower committee, and then you would share that calendar out. So we would do that by going to other calendars, hitting the plus button, going to create new calendar. I don't trust myself to spell committee. So flower stuff, hit create calendar. And now we have a calendar created called flower stuff. So what we do from here is we will set the, the color of it to be different. So let's go with yellow. And once again, we'll go to settings and sharing, and we will make sure that share with a specific group of people. We will add all the people who are on the committee to the shared calendar. Once that is done, we will start creating notification or creating events for the calendar. So let's say you mentioned December. On the left-hand side, it's a lot easier if you just go to the top left, this small calendar section, and hit next, as opposed to doing weekly like I was doing. So you mentioned something about December. Let's just say, December 11th sounds good. If we create an event, we will actually create an all-day event for 2 days. Title this Order Flowers X. Under here, we can see this clock icon, and it says does not repeat. If we click on this, we can say under does not repeat, we can say annually on December 11th, if you want it to be every single year going forward on the same day, or you can hit custom. What custom will allow you to do is it will allow you to select repeats every 1 day, week, month, year. So you can kind of go as crazy as you want. I generally just would select every year, so around the same time you'll get it on December 11th, and then you can set it to, ends. So this would allow it to end. So you would select on December 11th. After 10 occurrences, you can stop this. But generally, just plan for the future and never let it end. So custom reoccurrence repeats every 1 year. Done. So this event of order flowers will be on everyone's calendar who you gave access to the calendar, and it will repeat annually on December 11th. And one of the things that might be useful is phone number for the order, 1-555-555-5555. So you can add in the phone number that you call for the order, location of flower boxes. So you remember, where on the grounds these flowers will go, and type of flower.
Tim, this is Kath, tied into what she just asked you, because that's for the December one, but then if you got Easter, so you're going to do it in March or April, depending the year, different things. Can you tie different months into that one calendar?
Yeah, you can tie as many months, well, you can tie as many events into a calendar as you want. There is some limitation for if you wanted this one event to go off on Easter in December, you know, maybe in May kind of thing. That's where it gets kind of tricky, and I would just recommend creating one event for Easter, one event for December, one event for, you know, May or June kind of thing. You can do some specific things with custom, but I don't recommend it. It gets kind of finicky. So I just recommend 1-1-1.
So Tim, one question I have, leave this up. You would have shared this calendar with your committee, right?
Right.
And allowed them perhaps to edit, see and edit if everybody's actively. But they under find a time, I also see add guests. So you could add someone who isn't on the committee, but might need to know about this specific event, correct?
Correct. Yep. And you can give people access to a specific event in a calendar without giving them access to the full calendar. The last thing we would do in this section, we could add an attachment. For example, we could add an attachment of the previous year's purchase order, just so we have that going forward, because I always I always forget exactly what I did last year that worked really well. So it might be nice to add the attachment. And one of the nice things is after a couple of years, you can have added, you know, every single year's purchase order, and you can remember, oh, in, you know, 2019, that was really beautiful. 2020, for some reason, I didn't like the flowers we got as much. Let's go back to the 2019 version.
Yeah, tulips and salons recently.
But the last thing to remember to do is down here, next to the calendar icon, click, is to select the right calendar. Because it doesn't matter how much work I just put into this if I don't put it in the right calendar. So flower stuff, and hit save. And then it will be in the flower stuff calendar, which I have shared with every member of the flower committee. The other thing you can do is hit save, is click on it, go to the edit icon, edit event, and add notification. So this feels like something that you would want to be notified of maybe a week before, you know, to get ready for it, and then probably one day before kind of thing. So you can add more notifications to certain events to remind yourself to do them.
That's great, thank you.
Yes, that's very helpful, Tim. Thanks.
Any questions on Zoom for Tim?
So one more thing, specifically with this, is if you have a reoccurring event, and you want to change the event, upon creating a change, it will ask you if you want to edit this event or this and following events or all events. What this means is, do you want to make the change to just this one instance of the event, or do you want it to change this event and all the events going forward, or do you want it to change this event and all events going forward and backward in time?
Whoa.
So in this specific scenario, I would like to edit all events, but this is because I like the idea of adding the purchase order to the event. And this would allow me to see, even if I clicked on the event from 2 years ago, I would be able to see this year's purchase order. And I'll hit OK. But if you just wanted to like move this event 2 days into the future, just because for some reason it landed on a Saturday and you want it to land on a Monday, you can tell it to just edit this event and all the events. So next year, so right now, Order Flowers is on the 13th. If I go to next year, 2024, it'll still be on the 11th because I didn't have it change all events.
Okay, wonderful.
Wow.
So how does everyone else use calendars? Is there any questions about how you use them?
I've only tried to start to get into them, so I'm at ground
That's why
zero.
I'm here, so,
Yes, I'm at ground zero.
yes, me too.
Well, I think the best thing to do is to take this recording and these slides and go play. And, you know, just, you've given us a lot to think about, Tim, so thank you.
Yeah. So one thing before we go,
Mhm.
I had mentioned in the previous class, we had talked about how to add an event to the calendar
Right.
from an
Yes,
email.
yes.
I'll just do that again, mainly because I find it to be one of the easier or more useful things to do. So if we just click on an email like this and go to the top, ellipses, under more, click create an event. It will then pop open the calendar. The title will be the subject of the email. In the body of the email will now be displayed in the body of the event. So I will have all of that information right there in the calendar event. If there are any times or dates mentioned in the email, it will automatically, most of the time, change the time of the event to match. So if someone's like, hey, let's get, you know, brunch for the flower committee on April the 23rd, whenever you save that email as an event, it should auto-fill April 23rd brunch into the time, but it will allow you to select what time you want it to be. You know, 2:30 on February 24th to 6 p.m. Hit save, and then that's how you create an event from a email.
Tim?
Just remember to select the right calendar. Yep.
When you put that email into your calendar and you click on the day, it'll bring up the email so you can actually read it.
It won't bring up the email. It will copy what's in the email to the calendar.
So you'll see the whole
event.
message.
Yeah. Yep. You'll see the whole message. The other thing to remember is whoever is in the email chain will automatically be invited to the calendar event, which is useful if you're working in a committee setting where, you know, there may be 20 people on an email. You don't have to then add them to the event. It automatically sends them an invite.
And if you pull up a little farther, I saw the Google Meet. So that
Yep.
You could create a meeting with everyone who was on that email, correct?
Correct. Yep. Automatically creates a Google Meet meeting room for you to access on the day of the meeting.
Really powerful.
One of the things I just found, I put on my calendar the events for the day. But if I haven't completed it that day, I push on the date where I had it. And then I just move it. I just change the date. So like something I didn't finish yesterday, I pushed on the date for the 20th. And just when that calendar in the upper left showed up, I pushed 21 and it moved that information over to today. So that was kind of my way of making sure I didn't forget something. I just kind of moved it along the calendar.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why, if you are into that sort of organizational level, that's why I recommend taking at least a quick look at tasks, mainly because they will persist even if you forget to move them.
Yeah, I noticed that because I have forgotten a few, so that's
And
good.
then also with tasks, if you want to kind of move them, you can just click and drag them onto the next day as well, instead of relying on the notification up here. So you can see I have a task for yesterday. Now that pending task is up under Tuesday. And if I didn't do it today, it would be under Wednesday. So it can get overwhelming with you accumulating tasks like that. But pending task, click, it will tell me the name of the task, where I had it, when I had it set that I was going to do it. It would allow me to edit it or mark it as complete.
So it sounds like Tim was just saying is we need to complete as many as possible.
That's always the goal, right?
Yeah, if you like things like tasks and reminders and stuff like that, Google Calendar has a pretty good integration with it. And as always, you can view your tasks separately from the right-hand side. So there's a green or there's a blue check on the right. If we click that, we will see all of our tasks that have been in the past that we haven't done, all the ones today that we need to do, and we'll also see the future tasks that we have set. And if we notice at the top of this task list, I have underneath it, it has a red yesterday. That means that it's overdue as of yesterday, and it will, continue to go back in time. But
Sorry,
there's some nice Teams, or there's some nice task integration with Calendar. But if anyone wants more information about tasks, we can always either do a class on it or just drop by on Wednesday.
So anybody on Zoom have a question for Tim? Otherwise, we'll wrap this up. Okay. Well, Tim, thank you very, very much. I will get this recording uploaded and send everyone the slides and the recording as well. So here we